Hey everyone, my name is Deborah J, Intrepid Explorer of the Mind, Body and Soul, and today I wanted to introduce to you my new podcast. So as you'll know from previous videos, you can check more out about me on deborahjkelly.com, but recently I've just launched a brand new podcast called Intrepid Wisdom. You can check that out on intrepidwisdom.com, and there you'll be able to find the most recent episodes, you'll be able to find any freebies that are available, and yeah, hopefully it'll be something that will inspire you. So a good number of weeks ago, I had been searching very deeply for my life purpose and to find a little bit more deeper meaning in my own life. And I had, just before lockdown, I had this really cool idea that I wanted to interview people. I wanted to go around Ireland and I wanted to find some of the real life inspirational people who, they might be grandparents, great grandparents, they might just be parents or not parents at all. But the idea was that I wanted to mine from them the intrepid wisdom, the wisdom of relationships, of love, of life, of survival, of business, of entrepreneurship, of spirituality, of business, of life purpose, of everything. I just wanted to know about everything. I am literally addicted to learning. I can't help myself. I try and stop myself because I sometimes feel like I've just done that many courses and I've been learning so many different topics and modalities that I'm like, oh my God, I need to probably focus on one and just stay with that. I would love if I was that kind of person. If I discovered at the age of 6 that I was really good at the violin, and if that was the only thing that I could do for the rest of my life, I would be quite a contented person. If that's the only thing I had to focus on and make myself excellent at it and, serve the world with my beautiful music, that would be incredible. I don't know how to play the violin, so I don't know why I picked that as an idea. But my thing is to collect wisdom. Essentially, that's what it is. In 2017, I went traveling the world. I went backpacking on my own. I went around Australia, South America, Central America, India, Asia, Indonesia. So I did quite a bit of travel. And to be honest, my intention was to just go free my mind and just enjoy the world and see beautiful sights that there were to be seen. And what actually happened to me while I was traveling was very unintentionally, I ended up studying lots of different alternative therapies and healing modalities and studying the different healing of different cultures all around the world. So I actually started off with working with ayahuasca in Peru, and I lived with some shamans there and worked with the ayahuasca, studied some plant medicine, and that was just phenomenal. That probably is what reopened a lot of the journey that I ended up going on from there, because that was the start of my backpacking. That was a good way to start. And from there, I ended up heading off to Australia, where I did 8,500 kilometers in the outback, just myself and a relation of mine camping every single day. And that was an absolutely incredible experience all by itself. But I ended up, when I was in Australia, I was thinking to myself, like, it's such a, an alternative and complementary wellness capital of the world, really. They're really, really good at their alternative therapies. And I decided to look up different therapies that were available for me to study in the area that I was in. And I had always loved acupressure. Acupressure was something that I've always used on myself for years, very much self-taught, because, I'd have a headache or period pain or a toothache or, whatever. And I would use acupressure as a means of relieving that in myself. And I've done that for quite a long time. I never realized I was doing it. I know that sounds ridiculous to say. It was always just an answer for a question that I had. And so when I was in Australia, I kind of thought, okay, well, this could be an idea. So I went and did an acupressure course with a really crazy Russian guy and his wife. Absolutely amazing. The two of them were so lovely, but they were crazy and as mad as a box of frogs. And it was really, really interesting, and it was incredible how intuitive I was with it. It all just made sense to me. I didn't even have to guess at it. It all just kind of went in by osmosis. When I was in Australia, I ended up getting doing some reflexology. I was kind of treating myself, and I ended up meeting a really, really lovely woman who did the most insane reflexology session, and I was just blown away about, I hadn't realised to the extent of her working on me how much the body and the body was feeding back information about different things that were going on in it. And the session was really amazing, and I kind of thought nothing more of it. And then I ended up being invited to meditation session with a friend of hers who essentially runs meditation in India, but she was living in Australia at the time. And so I headed off down to the beach in Noosa first thing in the morning to do some meditation. So I'm down every morning at sunrise on the beach. Like, that's just heaven all by itself, really. And meditation for me had always been something, I had tried it and tried it and tried it, and for me I was like, what is this thing? You're sitting in lotus position, and I think all these hippies are just making up some sort of placebo effect, and maybe it's all bull, basically. And yet I kind of knew I was just telling myself that to comfort myself, because I hadn't yet figured it out. And so one day on the way back from one of these meditation sessions, something happened. There was a conflict that I was having with somebody over the phone, and where normally I would maybe have dealt with it very differently, what I found was this incredible space and time between me and what was happening. So the conflict in question and my reactions, instead of them being like bam bang, it was space and time, and allowed me to react calmly to this particular conflict. Nothing serious, it wasn't big drama or anything. Excuse me, but I remember being really, really mindful and aware of it, and I was like, wow, that's new. That's really, really new. And so that was the first time I realized that meditation, I was like, okay, there's something in this. There is something in this meditation. And I continued it on. And I remember my meditation teacher, or master, if you want to call her that, said to me, come to India to meet my Guruji, come to India and we'll do meditation there. And I was like, well, on this trip, India was going to be on my agenda, and now it's not, and it's a bit hectic, and my life has been a bit crazy. I'm not sure I want to go to India. And both of us knew that we'd see each other again. I don't know how, I can't tell you how, but we knew that we'd see each other again. And I said, look, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I headed off on the rest of my travels, and then headed off to Indonesia. Went to Malaysia, went to Indonesia. In Malaysia, I did a couple of kind of medicinal herb walks, and working with their local jamu, and making some of their local traditional lotions and potions and whatever. And then in Indonesia, I decided while I was in Bali, I was like, I can't leave this beautiful, beautiful city or town and not have learned something from here. And so I decided, why not do foot reflexology? I didn't want to do massage, because I kind of felt, for me personally, I felt I could do massage anywhere, and was it really going to be as authentic and all the rest of it? And there was lots of places in Ubud that I could do these courses, but I wanted to do a real course. No offense to anybody who's done those courses, I wanted to do an accredited course. So I went off to Bali Visa, and I ended up doing my foot reflexology, and I essentially lived in Bali for a while doing this course, and it was crazy. It was like I knew it. It was like I already knew it. I was like, how do I know what I'm doing here? Now, a certain amount of it was probably the acupressure and I had been doing bits of reflexology maybe through the years. I didn't specifically put it down as that, but again, it was acupressure points put on my feet. And when I was in Indonesia, I was like, oh my God, what is this? I know this. I got 99% on my exams. The only reason I lost 1% was because I had said hot water instead of warm water on one of the answers, which was more to do with a language difference than it was anything else. And that's the only reason that I got a slightly less mark. But I just aced it. And I still practice reflexology in Ireland. I do it mainly for friends and family. And I just love it because it's so intuitive for me. I feel literally like the body is talking to me, and I can feel like it's my thing. I definitely think it's one of my things. And so with that, I ended up using foot reflexology on lots of different backpackers as I was traveling, just as a means of being able to give back or help people out. And the one thing I love is that all these modalities that I'm learning are things that we can learn ourselves and we can use on ourselves to help ourselves. And it's the reason I'm so passionate about it is because we should all be able to help ourselves. If the world and the sky fell down tomorrow morning and we were in a situation where we were able to help ourselves, we should really have the empowerment to do that. And so for me, acupressure and reflexology now has always been a way for me to be able to do that. And I love being able to chat to people and they'll say, oh, I've got this thing going on or this thing. And I'll be like, well, have you tried this point? And I'll show them where on their body they can press different points and it'll help them. So I met a girl who had horrendous IBS and constipation, and I was able to show her points on her knee and also on her feet then that she was able to massage to help her with her constipation. And she messaged me back ages later going, oh my God, it's really, really helped me. So I love that. So after Indonesia, I ended up heading off to India because I just felt really drawn to it. And I ended up going to Rishikesh to study meditation with my meditation teacher and carried out Vipassana. And it was an incredibly transformative time. There's no words can describe the time that I had when I was meditating and building meditation as part of my life and my routine and my practice. And it's really genuinely what's saved me on so many occasions from just losing the plot. I equate meditation to a bit like spinning plates. Our lives are filled with spinning lots of different plates. And when we meditate, it's like we just keep spinning all those plates and keep everything in motion. When we stop meditating, those plates get really unstable, for me anyway. They get really unstable and then they either fall off, or if I realize it in time and I have stopped meditating and I go back meditating, I can spin them again and then they kind of come back into balance. And for me, it's as simple as that. So that was my meditation. And while I was there, I ended up going to study in there was a college in Haridwar that allowed you to study Ayurvedic herbology, where I studied essentially a lot of the Ayurveda style, but the herbology and the herbalism attached to it, because at this stage I just loved herbal medicine and the fact that we have weeds and herbs and everything growing around us and we don't realize the half of it. And that was incredibly informative in getting to know and understand, especially with Ayurveda, you've got your three doshas, your Vata, Pitta and Kapha. And with that, it puts us into a personality type group. And in one way, we're humans, we shouldn't be boxed into groups. But to be honest, if there's a system that allows you to understand yourself more, it can't be wrong. As long as you don't keep yourself in that solid box and you understand that life is changeable and your doshas change and your predominancy of your doshas change. The ones that you're born with don't change, but the rest of your doshas, they're adapting as your life is adapting. And I just found that so interesting, and the therapies and how to match in the different herbs with the different types of aspects of your doshas that are out and that as well. So that was just eye-opening and allowed me to look at herbal medicine from a very energetic point of view and from a very energetic understanding. And then I left India and I headed off to South America, where I ended up doing an internship for master plants, ethnobotany, sound therapy, dream therapy, and a whole range of different subjects. And that was just completely eye-opening. I knew I wanted to do herbal medicine somewhere. I knew I wanted to study the master plants because I had worked with the ayahuasca, and I knew in South America that because I had worked with the ayahuasca, and that's the home of where it came from the Amazon, I knew that I needed to know a little bit more about that. And so essentially I found a course whereby I lived with more shamans in the hills of Colombia, in a little tiny little village very high up in the mountains, and it was just stunning up there in a place called Pasto. And basically I learned so much about the master plants, but I also learned about sound therapy and how sound works and how our dreams work, and you know how frequencies can affect how our speech can affect our bodies, how the sound of our speech can actually tell us what our character and our personality is like, how to entrain our brains. There's so many things that I learned. And the herbal medicine side of things, it was just amazing to work with. I was working with plants like Datura and Belladonna and even Toei, to some end as well, Syrian rue, lots of the other master plants, and doing cacao ceremonies, which were just so beautiful. And I knew from there, I was like, I knew plants were always going to be a part of my life in some way, shape or form. So then I headed off to Central America, and although in Central America my studies kind of took a bit of a break and a rest there for a while, because I was actually meeting up with somebody for a couple of weeks to climb some pretty big volcanoes where we nearly got killed by lava bombs, which is a whole other story by itself. But I knew I wasn't going to do any studying in Central America, and before they arrived I was like, oh, maybe I'll get something in. And I ended up staying on Latin America's largest medicinal herb farm in San Jose in Costa Rica, and that was just a phenomenal experience because I ended up being put up. And I mean this, I had no plans on going to this place. I had travelled from San Jose up to Monteverde to the cloud forest, because I was just forests and forest rambling everywhere I went was part of my journey. And I ended up taking, I think it was like a 2 or 3 hour trip all the way back to San Jose to visit this herb farm. It was huge. And Tommy, who owns the farm, put me up in this beautiful tree house in the middle of a fig tree, which had no front on it, and looked out way over the canopies of trees, and far into the distance I could see San Jose, and it was just stunning. And so I ended up actually doing a little bit of work there and working on the farm whilst doing my own study, and going around and seeing so many of the plants that I had read about. I now saw them in reality. I saw them in physicality, and it was just really, really, really humbling and very, very beautiful. And from there, as I said, I was nearly killed by a lava bomb after climbing up Mount Fuego and Akatanengo, and then I headed off to Scotland, where I ended up doing an apprenticeship for 2 months, living on a farm off the islands of Scotland for 2 months, doing a herbal medicine apprenticeship. And that was beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of, because I got to live with the plants every day. I became aware of the seasons. I had seen seasons coming and going before, but really, honestly, I never noticed, when do the first buds come on the tree? When do they turn into fruit? The fact that they turn into fruit, the fact the flowers turn into fruit. This sounds ridiculous. I don't think I'd really passed much attention of that before. And hawthorn was my case study, my plant study, and I got to know hawthorn so intimately. And it's so beautiful to watch the trees and to watch flowers around you turn from these sprouting leaves into this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I would honestly urge you to pick a plant, any plant, just one, and watch it. Watch it go from, it doesn't matter if it's a weed, it doesn't matter if it's a bush. Watch what it does. Watch it go from autumn into winter, into spring, into summer, and watch the transformation. I really had never, my eyes just had never been open in that way before, and it blew me away. And I saw nature come to life in a way that I could have never comprehended before, and it has changed my life. And so essentially that's been my journey, and I've basically wandered the planet collecting wisdom, speaking to different cultures, trying to find out what their traditional mode of healing and learning is, and absorb that as much as I could possible. And when I came home to Ireland, I realised just how much similarities each of our cultures and countries really has, and how many crossovers, even down to myths and legends. And when I was in Ecuador, I stayed up in a place called the Polylepis Forest. Oh my God. That was amazing. Look up the Polylepis Forest in Ecuador. Stunning. In a place called El Ángel. And when I stayed there, I was the only person in this resort, in this kind of wooden forest lodge. I was the only person there, and I got the whole place to myself. And the guy who owns it came up to me and was telling me stories about leprechauns. And I said, well, leprechauns are Irish. And he was like, well, we have them here as well. And I was just blown away by the fact that our traditions and cultures have crossed so far across the seas. And it really humbled me. And still to this day, I'm learning. And what I've done, or my plan, is to bring my own knowledge and wisdom to you, and hope that it inspires you the same way that it opened up my eyes and inspired me. I'm hoping to speak to real life people and to dispel this thing of role models. Celebrities are not role models. In fact, they are terrible role models. Media is telling us who to be, what to eat, what to drink, what to think, who to follow, who not to follow. And years ago, this was done by, the wisdom that we got was not from TVs and movies and Hollywood and all this, wisdom was gained from our grandparents, from our parents, for hanging out with these people and hearing their stories, hearing their journeys, and feeling inspired by them. And I feel it's much easier to be inspired and motivated by somebody who's just an ordinary person, because you know that if they can do it, you can do it too. Rather than looking at these celebrities on TV and feeling that yes, you can do it, but then also doubting and thinking like, well, I'm not a celebrity and I don't have a big following and nobody really knows me. It's not about that. It's about who you are in your heart and your soul. And I think that we'll find that easier if we can reconnect with the wisdom of our generations. We're all going through really tough times at the moment. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of insecurity. And celebrities are not going to, or Hollywood or the movies or whatever, they're not going to inspire you to feel okay. They might, for momentarily, but really the people who are going to inspire me personally to feel okay are my elders. So my mother, my grandparents, if they're not alive anymore. But I know from their own stories and their own, they've had their own struggles in life and how they overcame these. And find older people in your community to talk to. I remember as a kid, I'd say I was probably maybe 10 or 11, and my school teacher said, go out in your local community and knock on the door of a neighbour that you know who's older, and go in and have a cup of tea or coffee with them and just hear them talk, hear their stories, ask them questions. They are libraries. And many of them have incredible and phenomenal life stories that can really teach us how to be people. We are lacking role models to show us how to go from being, girls to women, boys to men, how to handle that transition phase, how to face adversity with courage and to know that things are going to be okay. You know, we've had relations that have survived through recessions and wars and really terrible things. And they're the ones that we need to speak to, because they're the ones that are going to inspire us with hope. And so Intrepid Wisdom, the podcast, is about talking to real life people. It's about talking to people about tools that they've used in their life on their journey to become more at ease with themselves, to feel better about themselves, and to find deeper meaning in life. It really is about finding deeper meaning in life, widening our perspectives on the world, finding new ways to be okay with certain things that we find challenging or struggling, to accept life the way it is and not to feel so held captive by it at times. And it's not something that we can flick a switch on and we're okay and we're fine. I've learned that, I can move on and everything is fine. Life has polarity. Life will always have polarity. There'll be some times in life where you're going to have an amazing time and you're going to feel top of the world, and you know, and it finishes at some point, it ends and you come back to normality. And so too you'll have times where you'll feel really horrendous and like you just don't want to go on anymore and you can't handle things. And you know, if you look back in life, you've met every challenge that you've ever been handed. And so it's about realizing these and finding tools to go into that and just to learn, just to feel inspired and to feel motivated, and to open up your mind a little bit. So that's a little bit about me. It is also a little bit about Intrepid Wisdom. I would love if you would hit the link below to subscribe to my channel, this one here, which is deborahjkelly.com, but also to Intrepid Wisdom. Intrepid Wisdom, the podcast, as I said, is on intrepidwisdom.com. You'll be able to find the podcast also on Buzzsprout, on Spotify, and lots of the other platforms for podcasts as well. So I hope this has been interesting, and if you've any questions, leave me them in the comments below. Check out the website or my social media, which is Intrepid Wisdom also. You can hit me up there as well, send me a DM, and I shall talk to you soon. Bye.